Hello and welcome to today's episode of Pharmacovigilance Podcast. I'm your host, Yulia Pilskuk, and today we are diving in a very important topic, auditing in pharmacovigilance. And I have today with me Pankaj, who is very experienced in pharmacovigilance audit. Can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Julia, for inviting me for this podcast. I'm Pankaj Nautiyal. I'm currently working as pharmacovigilance auditor for Baxter Pharmaceuticals. I have been in pharmacovigilance industry for more than 18 years now, and my first 9 years have been purely pharmacovigilance and the operations within it. For last 9 years, I have been purely auditing across affiliates, global PV system, and license partners.
Great. So to start with, why audit is so important in pharmacovigilance?
Oh, I think it's important in every area of expertise or GXP for that matter because we have individuals in every processes to develop the system. So audit is needed to keep a check and balance of that system in periodic manner to ensure that the compliance is checked in line with the regulatory requirement and the standard operating procedures locally and globally.
So when we look for pharmacovigilance legislation, it's always a risk-based approach, risk-based auditing. So what does it mean in simple terms?
Risk-based is purely surrounding the risk factors which are within the scope of the pharmacovigilance processes. There are very risk factors associated with the pharmacovigilance process, like the regulation of the last previous inspection, previous audits, and number of products which is involved in the affiliate, how many individuals are working within the functions. So these are the examples of risk factors. And in order to carry out the audit in a periodic manner, I think this is where the risk-based terms comes into the picture because definitely not for every company it's possible to cover all the audits in a year time period, for example. And hence, as per the authority, the expectation is carry out a risk-based, prioritize them based on the risk basis rather than doing everything all together.
Thank you. So I think today focus would be the Commission implements in regulation 2025-1466, where we have new requirements for the auditing. So can you brief us what's new according to this updated regulation?
I think to me as an auditor, I feel I'm very happy with this new regulation coming into picture as an auditor because it gives more clarity not only to the auditor and the auditee across pharmaceutical company, each every marketing authorization holder for that matter. Because with this new regulation, which will become effective next year in February 2026, asking for more clarity in terms of contracts with the vendors and asking MAHs to specify clearly what are the different vendors' activities delegated to them. And it's not ending up at the vendor level because that's what we have been seeing this until now. But now it's going one step further and saying that also list down if you have any other sub vendors within the whole scope of delegation of activities. Because as an auditor, that's what I have seen in my career as during the audit. That when I will give you two examples here, like one where I have been for in the past for an affiliate audit, and there and that affiliate was for local responsible person's activity within the vendor capacity, and the vendor the contract there was only listed about that one vendor. Then I found out during the audit there were other three, four vendors subcontracted to different countries. So
Uh,
those were not within the agreement. And
yeah.
as an auditor, when we are auditing the vendor through the agreement, we are legally bound to audit only what is stipulated in the agreement. We were not able to cross those boundaries. But I think with new regulation, it gives more power to the auditor as well as to the inspectors because it's clearly saying that even though if it's not listed in the agreement, you still can go, scope as well. So I feel this will make the life simpler for the auditor in terms of, the vendor.
Agree. And the third part, vendor cannot say no because it's not in the agreement because MIH can audit according to this regulation. So maybe the question I have been puzzled, like an auditor or working for the MIH, how do we know about these third-party vendors that maybe if they're not mentioned in the contract? So when you're working with your audit universe, how you ensure that you capture all these third-party or subcontracting activities? So how to make sure that you're aware about them?
I feel as an MA within MH capacity, it is very important to have that communication with your pharmacovigilance operation team, one who's having a vendor oversight, because they also will equally made aware about these changes to regulation. They have to clearly reflecting the delegation of the activities in those agreements with the vendor. And I think in the regulation, it is clearly stated that all the delegation has to be listed. As per the regulation, it's asking to put the clause of inspection clause as well. So both the clause coming into the picture, that is one aspect. Secondly, as far as oversight is concerned, I think all the responsibilities has to be listed, including the subcontractors' details has to be listed. So as per the new regulatory requirement.
Yes, okay. Yeah. And I have a very important question for you to answer regarding the interval because we are moving from the risk-based auditing to risk-based interval. So, in your opinion, what is acceptable interval for doing audits?
I feel this, thanks for asking this question. Firstly, it will always vary from, size of the company, from a small to medium and to the large pharmaceutical company. I'm talking about the average medium-sized pharmaceutical company, then 2 to 5 year cycle that will be applicable for everyone because that is what the GP Module 4 talks about, the 2 to 5 year cycle. And as far as directly linking back to the previous regulation GP Module 4, and also it's stating that at regular interval, me, clearly still associating with the previous 2 to 5 year, to be followed. I think as long as they can describe that in their audit strategy, and I think maybe the first inspection can give them better insight whether for inspectors will it be acceptable if they are going above 5 years. Not
I totally agree with you. It's dependent on the size of the company, and sometimes you have really a long list of vendors. So maybe if we look also in the GVP model too, when we discuss the PV strategy or audit strategy, it could be 2 to 5 years. So probably 5 years should be safe. Do you agree with me?
I agree. I completely agree because it's you say as an auditor for us anything which is documented is means that is very important for us. And like some industry experts wants to go for 7 years, but as an auditor we can't guide them because it's not stated in the regulation clearly.
Exactly. We have to stick to the regulation.
So I feel with this new update to the regulation, it will make them very clear that risk-based assessment is not only to do your assessment, but also to perform the audit in that cycle basis.
Okay. If we discuss in vendors that you are auditing, can you give example of some vendors that left behind somehow? In my opinion, if I take example of translators or some of the inspectors was very clear you need to do the audit of the translator as well. So can you give some other example of vendor that don't think they need to audit and you have to give findings to them?
Yeah, I think it's a good example which you quoted about translator. I have similarly other examples. And I think that is always the good topic of interest, whether do we want to audit or is there other GXP auditors who have audited them? And for me, other example will be archiving facility because in every organization falls under the common GXP where even GMP, GCP comes into the picture. And to me, in this context, yeah, I always believe in the fact that yes, as a pharmacovigilance auditor, we should be equally involved in auditing. So it's up to the company how they want to approach it, whether they want to go for like mixed auditors with the different GXP going for those audits, or they want to, separate PV auditor going for the PV processes, like whether it is translation or whether it is archiving facility for that matter. It all depends upon the availability of the auditors and the resources available within the company. I think auditing is important.
Yes, it's a good example you're taking, and I remember was for my in the beginning of my early days in my career as a local safety officers, and we had audit for the system, and they asked about archiving. So I went to visit archive. It was somewhere underground, 40 kilometers, huge archive in Sweden, and I went and really inspect all aspect of this archive. Moving to the next question. So what company should focus on when you do the audit? And also like saying we have been inspected, we don't need to do audit. What would you say to those MIH?
I think this is quite a common response you get when you work with been with as a consultant in the last 4 years as well. So I do hear those kind of when communicating with the auditing. But I always say is that you should keep these two things separate, audits and inspections, because every inspectors and auditors will come with a different approach and different insight. We just need to have value their experience and expertise and be open to your systems and processes. At the end of the day, the aim of audit and inspection is to strengthen the process and balance in terms of the regulatory requirement. Even though if you had an inspection, doesn't mean that same finding is not going to reappear, or you might see that I have seen from my experience that there were companies who had a finding in the from one of the authority, but then in the future inspection they had critical finding. So in terms of data in pharmacovigilance, every 2 to 5 years, I always believe that data is changing. So hence, it's very important to keep a check and balance in your system and be open for inspection. Don't think that because the inspection has been done, so you should be okay not to carry out an audit. You still be, to do an audit so that you are better prepared for future inspection, and also it will give you an opportunity to, effectiveness of your CAPA from the last inspection.
Mhm. So can you give some example what the common finding, the most common problem that you see when you're auditing?
From my experience of 9 years, I think definitely like when I started into this auditing, case processing used to be a big phenomena.
Mm.
But as of now, I feel I think most of the company has quite streamlined, the in terms of criticality of the finding, I'm saying. Don't see much of criticality happening there. But currently, inspectors, if I have to say, I think the hot topic would be the safety variation and its implementation in the last 3 to 5 years, if I have to say. That would be the top one because where I have seen, like a lot of safety variations, the companies are, on it, but they have found out difficult implement those in safety variation following the approval on timely manner. And I think again inspectors or authorities are coming very hard where the MAHs are not able to implement it a timely manner because like old label into the market or not introducing the pill into the timely manner into the market, it's putting patient safety at risk. So
Mhm.
that's one of the, other than that, the signal management, if you're not following track recommendation into the signals, that can also, serious safety at risk.
Okay, then we are moving towards the end of our dialogue today. There are a lot of changes in this commission implements and regulation that has been updated, and I think there are several paragraphs like Article 11, 15, 1, 17. So, what would be your last word to our listener? What they need to prepare? Like you mentioned, February 2026. So, what do they need? How to prepare to these upcoming changes until February?
My suggestion to, will be listening to the postcard will be, changes because again, guidance coming from the regulatory health authority. Don't wait for the inspection to, yours done. It's proactive and act quickly. Definitely, the changes is coming from the auditing, but remember, since it is to do with the vendor contract, the first thing you have to do is review and update your agreement with the different vendors across the board, not just limit to the EU. So even non-EU countries will come into the picture in terms of vendor because global inspection take place, then they can also go to the global vendor as well. And ensure that your agreement is up to date. It includes all the subcontracting vendors as well in terms of delegation. Like you have a vendor with for the local responsible person, and then there are sub vendors by that ensure that everything is listed under the contract. So just be ready and have a good vendor oversight now because that will be coming more into the focus with this new regulation.
Great. Thank you, Pankaj, for sharing your insight with us today. And this was Pharmacovigilance Podcast. I'm Yulia Apelskuk, and see you in the next episode.
Thank you.